Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. It wasn't the words that stung the most. It wasn't the insults, the snide comments, or the public exposure. It was the look on her face when she hit send. That moment, when she knew what she had done and still went ahead with it anyway. I had never thought this would happen. You see, I was the kind of guy who preferred silence over drama, who kept my emotions locked away and just focused on making things work. My name's Greg. No flashy title, no grand backstory. Just a regular guy with a regular life. A quiet life with Lara, my wife of 8 years. We'd built our life together slowly, brick by brick, like most people. Sure, we had our disagreements, but there was always a sense that we were in it together. Or at least, that's what I believed. Our lives, our marriage, it was all underpinned by one thing: privacy. We never posted much on social media. She had her account, I had mine, but neither of us used it as a diary for our personal lives. We were both private people, happy to live outside the spotlight. At least, that's what I thought, and I was okay with that. She was the kind of person who craved affirmation in her own way, validation, recognition, attention, but I always assumed that, together, we had our own little world. A world that was for us and no one else. Until that one day, when everything changed. I didn't see it coming at first. I thought she was just venting, letting off steam. She'd been upset lately, stressed with work, and I understood. Life had been hard on her, and I'd been trying to be the supportive husband. But something about her mood that day felt different. It felt colder, distant even. We were sitting on the couch, watching TV, and I noticed her scrolling through her phone a lot. A lot more than usual. She'd been on it for hours, her thumb flicking up and down, eyes fixed on the screen. At one point, I even asked, "Hey, what's going on? You all right?" She didn't answer immediately. She just stared at the phone screen, her lips pressed tight. And then she said it. "Why don't you ever post about me?" I blinked. "What? Why don't you ever post pictures of us, or say something nice about me online? It's like I don't even exist to your followers." I paused. I wasn't sure how to respond. "Lara, we don't need to do that. We don't need to prove anything to people. We're fine." But she wasn't satisfied. "Everyone else does it, Greg. Everyone else puts up sweet posts about their partners, their love lives. Why do I always have to be the one to share everything? Why can't you do it for once?" I could feel the tension building. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't that I didn't care about her. It was just that social media had never felt important to me. It was superficial, temporary. But I could see that it mattered to her, maybe even more than I realized. I rubbed my eyes. "Lara, you know I love you, right? I don't need to show the world that to prove it. You know that." She scoffed, throwing her phone down on the coffee table. "You never get it, do you?" Before I could respond, she stood up and walked into the other room. I was left staring at her phone, lying on the table in front of me. It felt like something had shifted, something irreversible. I wasn't sure what was going on in her mind, but I could tell it was serious. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone. I usually ignored them, but something about the way Lara had left the house, how cold she'd been, made me open it up. It was from her Instagram. And there it was. The post that I never saw coming. It was a picture of us at a wedding, taken years ago. We were laughing, arms around each other, looking like we had it all figured out. But the caption, had me frozen in place. When you're in a marriage with someone who doesn't even care enough to post about you. Guess it's just me, myself, and I. Hashtag alone in this marriage, hashtag not enough, hashtag waiting for something better. I felt the blood rush to my face. The words burned in my gut. This wasn't just a personal issue, something we could have discussed privately. This was a public attack. She had turned our private pain into a spectacle for the world to see. A cry for attention that was impossible to ignore. She had put me on blast, making it look like I was the villain in our story. The comments started rolling in almost immediately. Supportive comments from her friends, sympathizing with her, calling me selfish. A few people even went as far as to suggest that she deserved someone who would appreciate her more, someone who would make her feel like she was worth the effort. And of course, her friends were there, liking the post, commenting about how brave she was for being honest and vulnerable. I felt humiliated. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. How could she do this? How could she expose our private issues for the world to judge? It was like she wanted to punish me, to make me feel small. And it worked. But there was one thing she didn't expect. I wasn't just going to sit back and take it. The moment I saw that post, I felt a knot form in my stomach. I tried to shake it off, but it lingered like a dark cloud. I was furious. The idea that my private life, my personal relationship with Lara, was now out there for everyone to judge felt like a betrayal. But what angered me most was how she had made it seem like I was the villain. She painted this picture of me as the uncaring husband, the one who never appreciated her, when in reality, I had always tried my best. We both had our flaws, sure, but this was a new low. I spent the rest of the day trying to calm down. I didn't want to make a rash decision, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply this hurt me. Lara and I had always kept our struggles between us. We didn't air our dirty laundry in public, at least not until now. This post felt like an ultimatum, a public declaration that our marriage was falling apart, and she was putting it all out there for validation from strangers. I tried calling her, but she wouldn't pick up. I texted her, asking what the hell was going on, but no reply. It was clear she wasn't interested in talking. At least, not to me. By the time I got home that night, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this go without some kind of response. She wanted to make our relationship a spectacle? Fine. But I was going to take control of the narrative. I knew exactly what I had to do. Instead of letting the anger fester, I grabbed my phone and started typing. Not a text to her, not a direct message, but a post. Something that would catch her off guard. Something that would make her realize that I wasn't just going to sit idly by while she tore apart our marriage for attention. I thought for a moment about what I wanted to say. I knew it had to be impactful. I needed it to be clear. No more silence, no more being the passive one. If she wanted to play this game, then fine. But I would play it on my terms. So, I drafted a post. It wasn't a direct attack on her. No, I wasn't going to stoop to that level. Instead, I focused on the truth. I told my side of the story. I explained how I had always been there for her, how I had supported her dreams and ambitions, how I had spent hours helping her with her photography business, her blog, anything she wanted. I reminded everyone that I wasn't the monster she made me out to be. I talked about how hurt I was by the public humiliation, how I never wanted our relationship to become a public spectacle. But I didn't stop there. The part that really hit home was when I revealed something Lara didn't expect anyone to know. Something I had kept hidden for months, her secret relationship with a guy from work. I wasn't proud of it, but I knew it had to be said. I had caught them together a few months ago. It wasn't a full-on affair, at least I didn't think it was. But there had been enough tension, enough flirting, enough moments of emotional distance between us that I started to suspect something. I had confronted her about it once, but she brushed it off, denied it. She was always good at deflecting. But now, I was ready to lay it all out there. I didn't want to ruin her life, but I wanted her to understand the consequences of her actions. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about showing her that I wasn't going to take this sitting down. I hit post. Immediately, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I had done it. There was no turning back now. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with notifications. My friends, family, and even a few mutual acquaintances started commenting, sharing the post, and texting me. Some were supportive, others shocked, but everyone seemed to have an opinion. One thing was certain, Lara would never expect this. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my phone. My heart was pounding, but there was a sense of relief in my chest. I had finally done something to take control of the situation. But the thing that scared me the most? I knew this was only the beginning. The moment I hit post, everything shifted. I didn't even need to look at my phone to know that Lara was going to be furious. It was only a matter of time before she saw what I had done. But honestly, I didn't care. In fact, I felt a strange sense of power. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one being pushed around, the one silently suffering. I had taken control of the narrative. The whole thing felt almost freeing. The notifications started flooding in almost immediately. Friends, family, people I barely knew were commenting on my post. Some were supportive, telling me they had no idea how hard I had been dealing with everything. Others were shocked, asking why I hadn't said something sooner. I didn't reply to any of them. I wasn't interested in engaging with the drama. I just wanted to wait and see what Lara would do. It didn't take long. Around an hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from her. Just a single line. "You've gone too far." I knew that was just the beginning. Lara didn't send a lot of texts, but when she did, it was because she was fuming. I could practically hear her voice in my head. Sharp, cutting, accusing. I waited for her to call, and it came. My phone rang, and it was her name on the screen. My thumb hovered over the accept button. I wasn't sure what I was expecting: anger, pleading, maybe even guilt, but I wasn't prepared for what actually happened when I answered. "What the hell is wrong with you, Greg?" she snapped as soon as I picked up. "How could you do that? You had no right. You've ruined everything." I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't ruin anything. You're the one who decided to make our problems public. All I did was tell the truth." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing heavily. "You think that's the truth? You think you have it all figured out? You really want to throw everything away like this?" "I'm not throwing anything away, Lara. You are," I replied, feeling my anger flare. "You decided to air our dirty laundry for the world to see. You wanted attention. Now you have it. But I'm done being the scapegoat. You humiliated me, and I'm not going to sit here and let you make me look like the villain anymore." She was silent for a moment, and I could tell she was weighing her options. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind as she tried to figure out how to spin this in her favor. But she wasn't going to have the upper hand anymore. Not this time. "You know what, Greg?" she finally said, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "You have no idea what I've been dealing with. You've never once tried to understand me. You just sit there, acting like everything's fine, like your little routine is enough. But it's not. And now you've exposed everything. You've made me look crazy." "Crazy?" I repeated, almost incredulously. "You're calling me crazy? You've been ignoring me for months, Lara. You've been emotionally distant, and I caught you with him. Don't even try to deny it. You think I'm just supposed to act like everything's normal while you're out there looking for someone else to validate you?" I could hear her breathing intensify, the frustration and guilt bubbling up on the other end of the line. "You don't know anything. It's not what you think. You don't understand me, Greg." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "No, I understand more than you think. You use social media to make me the bad guy, but now it's my turn. And trust me, this won't be the end of it." Before she could respond, I ended the call. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. The adrenaline still coursed through my veins, but now I felt a sense of relief. Relief that I hadn't let her walk all over me anymore. She had been playing a dangerous game, but now the tables had turned. It wasn't just about the post anymore. This was about me reclaiming my dignity, and I wasn't going to back down. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for the inevitable fallout to continue, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get even messier. Lara wasn't going to let this go easily. In fact, I was starting to realize that she had underestimated me. She thought she could control the narrative, but now I had the power, and I was ready for whatever came next. The next few hours were a blur of frantic texts and constant phone buzzing. I had expected Lara to lash out, but nothing prepared me for the message I received an hour later. It wasn't from her, but from a mutual friend, David. "Hey man, you okay? Just saw Lara's story. What's going on?" At first, I assumed it was just David checking in, probably feeling awkward about the situation. But then I read the message again, and something in my gut tightened. Lara hadn't just posted something for her followers. She had also shared a story with a picture, and it was about me. I quickly opened my Instagram, heart pounding. There it was. A blurry photo of me, taken a few days ago, with a caption: "When you realize your husband doesn't even care to notice how unhappy you are." The post was subtle, but the implications were clear. It was a dig, a public statement designed to make me look indifferent, uncaring. It was like she was pushing the blame back onto me, trying to manipulate the narrative even further. I was speechless. Was this her next move? To paint herself as the victim? To make it seem like I was the one who never noticed her pain? I sat there for a long moment, staring at the screen, processing what was happening. The game had just changed again. Lara had always been good at twisting things, and it seemed like she had mastered the art of playing the victim. She was manipulating the situation in a way that I hadn't expected. She was going to make me look like the bad guy, but I wasn't going to let that happen. Not again. I thought back to all the small signs, the moments I had ignored, the things she'd said in passing. I had always brushed them off, assuming everything would get better on its own. But now, it was all out in the open. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about the post anymore. It was about something much deeper, something I had overlooked for a long time. I wasn't just fighting to protect my reputation or our marriage. I was fighting for control over my own life. Because, at that moment, it felt like Lara had hijacked everything, and I was powerless to stop her. I knew what I had to do next. The next day felt different. The silence between Lara and I was deafening, but it wasn't just awkward, it was heavy. I couldn't stop thinking about her story, the way she twisted everything to make me seem like the bad guy. It felt like she was testing me, trying to push me into a corner, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I had already made my move, and now I had to sit back and wait. But the waiting wasn't easy. Every text, every notification from friends or family, every call, it all just made the tension worse. People were starting to pick sides. Some reached out in support, others seemed unsure, questioning why I hadn't handled things privately. The comments were flooding in, each one like a small dagger being thrown in my direction. But I didn't care. I wasn't going to back down. I knew I had to do something, but what? What was the next step in this twisted game she had dragged us into? I thought back to the earlier moments, when we'd been so connected, when everything between us seemed solid. How had it all gotten here? And more importantly, why was she so determined to make this so public? It was around noon when I got the call. It was Lara. She didn't leave a message, but I saw her name flash across my screen. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that no matter how this conversation went, it wasn't going to be good. But I had to know where her head was at, so I answered. "What do you want, Lara?" I asked, my voice tight but controlled. There was a long pause before she spoke. "We need to talk. In person." I clenched my jaw. The last thing I wanted was a face-to-face conversation. Every part of me screamed to just ignore her, to let her stew in the mess she had created. But I knew I couldn't keep running from it. I had made my own mess too, and it wasn't fair to leave things hanging in the air. "Fine," I said, barely above a whisper. "Where?" Her response was simple. "My place. 7 p.m. I hung up without another word. The whole situation felt like a trap, but I couldn't avoid it forever. I had to face her. When I arrived at her apartment that evening, the air between us was thick with unspoken words. She didn't greet me with a hug, no warm smile like there might have been before. Instead, she stood in the doorway, eyes narrowed. There was a strange intensity to her gaze, something that made me question if I was still seeing the same person I had married. "What do you want to say, Lara?" I asked, trying to sound firm, though my hands were shaking slightly. She let out a deep breath, stepping aside to let me in. "I think you know why I wanted to talk." I followed her into the living room, and we both sat down, the distance between us feeling miles wide. She was calm now, but there was a tension in her posture, as if she were waiting for me to make the first move. "You made a big mistake," she said, her voice low but steady. I wasn't surprised. I knew she'd try to turn it around, but I couldn't hold back anymore. "No, Lara, you made the mistake. You decided to air our private issues to the world. You thought that was going to fix everything?" Her eyes flashed. "You think you've got all the answers, don't you? You think I'm the only one to blame? You haven't exactly been the perfect husband, Greg. I've been suffocating in this marriage for months, and you've just been absent. You think I didn't notice?" I stared at her, stunned. "Absent? Are you serious? I've been working, trying to keep us afloat, doing everything I could to make this work. You've been out there, emotionally checking out, and now you want to blame me?" She leaned forward, her voice growing sharper. "You never saw me, Greg. You never saw what was going on with me. And now you want to sit here and tell me how it's all my fault?" The room felt like it was closing in on me. I tried to stay calm, but the frustration was bubbling up. "You think making everything public was going to solve anything? Do you honestly think the people on Instagram care about our problems? Or are they just another audience for you to perform for?" She stood up suddenly, pacing. "Maybe they care, Greg. Maybe they see something you don't. Maybe I don't need you to fix everything. Maybe I just needed you to see me." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. She had been telling me this for months, but I hadn't been listening. I had been so caught up in my own world, in my work, in trying to make everything perfect, that I had neglected the one thing that mattered the most, her. But was that reason enough to justify what she did? Was it enough to turn our marriage into a public spectacle? To expose me to the world like that? I looked at her, the pain in her eyes mixing with the anger, and I knew. This wasn't just about the post anymore. It was about us, about everything we had become. The lies, the silence, the broken pieces we were trying to glue back together. "I can't keep doing this, Lara," I finally said, my voice breaking through the tension. "I can't keep pretending that everything's fine. Maybe we need more than just an apology or a post to fix this. Maybe we need to face the truth." She didn't respond. She just stood there, looking at me like she was waiting for something, waiting for me to decide if this was the end or the beginning of something new. I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. The tension in the room was unbearable. I could feel it tightening around me, pushing down on my chest as Lara stood in front of me, her back rigid with anger. I had said my piece, but there was still so much left unsaid. I could tell she wasn't done, and honestly, neither was I. After a long silence, I finally spoke again. You can't just blame everything on me, Lara. You've been hiding things from me for months, and I've tried to give you space. I've tried to be patient. She didn't say anything, but her expression changed, subtle, almost imperceptible, like a flicker of guilt in her eyes. For the first time in this conversation, she looked vulnerable. I pressed on, feeling like I had to know the truth, even if it hurt. Why didn't you ever tell me how bad things were? Why didn't you say anything? Why go behind my back? She shifted uncomfortably, crossing her arms. You wouldn't have understood, Greg. You were so wrapped up in your own world, your work, your problems. You didn't see me. You didn't see the distance growing between us. I felt the frustration bubbling up again, but I forced myself to stay calm. I know I wasn't perfect, but there was something else, wasn't there? Something you weren't telling me. She finally looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something other than anger or deflection in her eyes. There was fear. Fear that maybe, just maybe, I was about to expose everything. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke. I never wanted you to find out. I could feel my pulse quicken. Find out what, Lara? She hesitated for a long moment, like she was trying to find the right words. But when they came, they hit harder than I ever expected. There's someone else. There has been for a while. I froze. My breath caught in my throat as the words sank in. The world around me seemed to stop moving, like time itself was holding its breath. I had suspected something, sure. The distance between us, the late nights, the secretive phone calls. But hearing her admit it, hearing the words come from her mouth, shattered everything. I felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over me. Who? I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. Her eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. She was hiding something, and I could feel it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I've made a mistake, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I can. I sat back, the weight of her confession pressing down on me. You've been seeing him while we're still married? She nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her own guilt was finally crashing down on her. I never meant for it to happen. It just did, and now I can't take it back. I felt sick, betrayed. The woman I had trusted with everything, the woman I had fought for, had been lying to me all this time. It wasn't just the emotional distance anymore. It was the fact that she had been sharing herself with someone else, behind my back, while I was giving her everything I had. How long? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Months, she admitted, her voice breaking. It started off as something small. Flirting. Texts. I didn't think it would go anywhere. But then it did. And by the time I realized what was happening, I was already too deep in. I stood up, pacing around the room, trying to make sense of what she had just said. How had I been so blind? How had I let this happen? You never thought to come to me? I asked, my voice cracking. You never thought to talk to me about how you were feeling? Instead, you went behind my back. I didn't know how to talk to you, Greg. I didn't think you'd understand. You were always so focused on everything else but me. I was lonely, and he listened. He made me feel heard. He made me feel important again. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. So what now? What am I supposed to do with this? She shook her head. I don't know. I don't even know if we can fix this. There was no anger in her voice anymore. No defensive tone, no manipulation. It was as if the person I had married, the woman who had once been my world, had just given up. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, and I realized with a sinking feeling that maybe she had checked out long before I did. But even so, I wasn't ready to give up. I wasn't ready to let her get away with tearing us apart so easily. I had to make a choice. You need to figure out what you want, Lara, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. But I'm not going to keep playing this game. You can't just string me along and expect me to pretend everything's fine. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry, but sorry didn't seem like enough. And it wasn't going to fix what she had broken. The weight of Lara's confession hung in the air like a suffocating cloud, and I couldn't escape it. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. My hands were shaking, and no matter how hard I tried to focus, the words she had just said kept echoing in my mind. Months. How long had this been going on? How long had I been living in the dark, blind to the truth that she had been hiding from me? I tried to steady myself, but the anger, the betrayal, it was all too much. I couldn't look at her without seeing the lies, the moments I had missed, the times I tried to make things work when she had already checked out. I trusted you, I said, my voice low, barely above a whisper. It felt like a punch in the gut just to say the words aloud. Lara's face crumbled. I know. I never wanted to hurt you, Greg. I never meant for it to go this far. Her words felt empty now, like hollow excuses. I couldn't find it in me to care about her apologies anymore. I had spent so much time trying to understand her, trying to make sense of the distance between us, but now it was all clear. She had been pushing me away while pulling someone else closer. You think you can just apologize and everything will be fine? I asked, incredulously. You think after all this, we can just go back to normal? I don't know, she admitted, her voice cracking. I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if we can ever be the same. Her honesty hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. But in a way, it was freeing. At least now I didn't have to pretend I didn't see what was happening. At least I didn't have to keep questioning myself. I stood up, pacing again, trying to make sense of it all. My mind was a whirlwind of frustration, confusion, and sadness. I had given everything to this relationship, but it wasn't enough. And now, Lara was telling me that maybe we couldn't fix it. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. I don't even know who you are anymore, I said, the words cutting through the silence like a blade. Lara's face crumpled even further. She wiped her eyes, but the tears kept coming. I'm sorry, Greg. I never wanted to hurt you. Just what? I snapped, turning toward her. You just didn't care enough to be honest with me? You just didn't care about us? I didn't know how to fix it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't know how to fix me. I didn't respond immediately. What was there to say? The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, had gone to someone else for the things I wasn't giving her. And now, she was telling me she didn't know how to fix it. It was too late for apologies. I could feel the anger rising again. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I wanted to scream. But instead, I took a deep breath, and when I spoke again, it was more composed, though every word still carried the weight of everything I was feeling. You need to figure out what you want, Lara, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Because right now, I don't think I'm the person who can give it to you anymore. She shook her head slowly, like she was trying to process my words. What do you mean? I mean, I'm done trying to fix something that's already broken. I can't keep living in this illusion that everything's fine when it's not. Maybe you need time to figure out what you want, but I can't wait around anymore. Not like this. Her face twisted in pain, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman I had once known. But then it faded, replaced by the cold reality of what had happened between us. I'm sorry, she repeated, but I couldn't find it in me to say anything back. The silence that followed felt suffocating, and as I turned to leave, I knew that everything had changed. There was no going back from this. But as I reached the door, she called out to me. Greg, please, don't leave like this. Don't walk away. I stopped, my hand on the door handle, and turned to face her one last time. You've already walked away, Lara, I said quietly. I'm just catching up. I opened the door and walked out, the weight of the situation crashing down on me. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing for certain. The life I thought I had was gone, and there was no way to undo what had been done. The next few weeks felt like a blur, a strange mix of numbness and slow healing. I didn't immediately feel relief after leaving Lara's apartment. In fact, I felt lost. My whole world had been turned upside down. But as time passed, I started to realize something important. I was better off without her. It wasn't an easy truth to accept, but it was the reality. She had betrayed me, and as much as I had loved her, I wasn't going to allow myself to stay in a relationship that was built on lies. I threw myself into work, something I had neglected for far too long. But more importantly, I started reconnecting with myself. I spent time with friends I hadn't seen in years, rekindling old hobbies and passions. I remembered who I was before I met Lara, the person who was content on his own, the person who didn't need anyone else to feel complete. And in that rediscovery, I found strength. As for Lara, she didn't try to contact me much after that night. Her social media posts about our failed marriage stopped, and for a while, I wondered if she would try to reach out again. But I had made my decision. I wasn't interested in going back to the person who had so easily walked away from me, who had publicly humiliated me for her own gain. And then, one day, I got a message from David, the mutual friend who had texted me after Lara's post. "Hey, man, have you seen what's going on with Lara? It's bad." I was curious, but hesitant. I had no intention of keeping tabs on her, but I couldn't help myself. "What happened?" I asked. David sent a link. It was to an article. My heart dropped when I saw the headline. Social media influencer scandal. Woman's secret affair exposed. I clicked on the link, and my stomach twisted as I read through the article. Lara had gotten involved with a man from her work, someone she'd been seeing behind my back. But what I hadn't known, what she had carefully kept hidden, was that this man had been in a committed relationship with someone else. And now, that woman had found out. The whole affair had been exposed publicly. Pictures, messages, everything. It was karma, in its truest form. Lara had used social media to humiliate me, to make me look like the villain, but now it was her turn to face the consequences. The article went on to describe how the affair had been uncovered by the woman's friends, and how Lara's involvement in the scandal was making headlines across multiple platforms. Her followers, the ones who had once praised her for her openness and vulnerability, were now turning on her, leaving scathing comments about her betrayal. She had become the joke, the cautionary tale, the one who played with fire and got burned. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. It wasn't about revenge, it was about karma. I had tried to protect our privacy, to keep things respectful. But Lara had chosen a different path, one where she thought she could control the narrative, where she could manipulate people's perceptions of her and me. Now, the truth was out there for everyone to see. Over time, Lara's social media presence dwindled. She posted less and less, and eventually, she disappeared from the spotlight entirely. The fallout from the affair and the public humiliation was too much for her to handle. It wasn't just her reputation that had been tarnished, it was her career, her entire brand. And all of it came crashing down, just like the house of cards it had always been. As for me, I found peace. The anger I had once felt slowly faded, replaced by a sense of closure. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I had moved on, focusing on my work and building a new life for myself. I realized that in the end, it wasn't the betrayal that had defined me. It was how I chose to rise above it. A few months later, I met someone new. Her name was Emma. She was smart, funny, and kind. She didn't care about social media drama or pretending to be something she wasn't. She was genuine, and with her, I found something I had forgotten existed: trust. I learned that life, no matter how hard it seems in the moment, has a way of bringing you what you need when you least expect it. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't looking for closure. I was just looking for a way to heal, and I found it, not in the aftermath of the storm, but in the calm that followed. Lara had gotten what she deserved, but I didn't need to be the one to deliver it. The universe had its own way of balancing things out, and in the end, it was me who came out on top, stronger, wiser, and more whole than I had ever been before. Please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.